Hello to everyone in the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral community and all of our friends. This is Father Jonathan. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to continue our series on the lives of the saints, and on this, the 4th of March, we celebrate the memory of our Venerable Father Gerasimos, Hermit of the Jordan. Our Holy Father Gerasimos was born in the province of Lycia at the end of the 4th century and entered a Cenobenic monastery when he was still a child. After having been initiated into the practices of the common life, an ardent desire for God led him to a more solitary places, where he nourished himself on wild plants and gave his days and nights over to battling against the spirits of darkness and the passions of the flesh. From there he went to the Holy Land, where, in order to undertake greater battles in the places sanctified by the presence of so many saints and new apostles. Having venerated the sanctuaries of Jerusalem, he then journeyed into the harsh desert around the Dead Sea, which he tamed by his virtues, and where he drew great numbers of disciples to himself. During the troubled times that shook the monks of Palestine after the Council of Chalcedon in 451, when more than 10,000 of them were led into heresy, Saint Gerasimos, a victim of his own simplicity, let himself be led astray for a time by the deceptive eloquence of the Monophysite Theodosius, who had seized the episcopal throne of Jerusalem in the place of Saint Juvenal. However, in his meeting with the Saint Ephthemius in the desert of Ruba made him realize his errors, and he accepted Saint Ephthemius' teaching with humility and returned to orthodoxy, becoming both by his life and by his teaching a fervent defender of the true faith. From then on, he kept in frequent contact with Saint Ephthemius, and every year would go with him into the depths of the desert, where they would spend a whole Lent until Palm Sunday in strictest fasting and unceasing prayer. Throughout the week, he abstained from all food, and on Sundays he received nothing other than Holy Communion. As his disciples were becoming more numerous, Saint Gerasimos made provision for their weakness by founding a lavra in a more temperate setting on the banks of the Jordan River. Here he harmoniously brought together the common life and the solitary life, thus offering to all a wholesome model for virtuous combat. Beginners first had to live in the cenobium in order to learn submission and the practices of the angelic life. Those who were sufficiently tested in ascesis and humility then went to live in solitude in the surrounding countryside. These were spread out among the more than 70 cells, which were quite distant one from another, so that each might give himself without distraction to prayer and chanting the divine hymns. Only bread and water were eaten during the 5 weekdays. On Saturday and Sunday, hermits and cenobites would come together in the church to celebrate divine liturgy and partake of the holy mysteries. After a common meal followed by some spiritual conversation or a spiritual talk given by their father Gerasimos, they would receive the necessary provisions for their manual work, a loaf, a few dates, a pitcher of water, and each would return in silence to continue his combat, alone before God. The austerity of life of these hermits was such that in their cells they had neither lamp nor anything to make a fire, mortifying their stomachs and all their fleshly passions by an unceasing combat against the tendency of our nature towards pleasure. They learned thus to remain masters of despondency, anger, and all the passions of the soul, and kept their minds awake and vigilant in constant remembrance of God. Saint Gerasimos taught them how to put their care into cultivating the hidden man in their hearts, and to lift up their souls to contemplation of divine mysteries. They were so stripped of all earthly attachment to worldly things. On leaving their cells, they would leave their doors open by design, so that anyone who entered might take whatever he needed. Thus they imitated perfectly the lives of the apostles and were able to receive from God the same graces that were given to these latter. Saint Kyriakos the Anchorite he who, being too young to undertake the solitary combat in the desert, had been sent to St. Gerasimos to become his disciple, recounted that one day, after having been warned in a dream in which he saw a vision of a column of smoke rising to heaven, he was told by his elder that Saint Euthymius had died, and they would have to undertake a long march through the desert to Jericho in order to attend his funeral. Another time, as the saint was walking along the banks of the Jordan, a terrifying-looking lion suddenly appeared before him, howling with pain, and held out his swollen paw for him to see. A thorn from a reed had embedded itself in it. Full of the same compassion that God feels towards all his creatures, Gerasimos drew out the thorn, cleaned the wound, and sent the beast away. The lion, however, full of gratitude, did not wish ever again to leave the man of God. He would follow him everywhere like an exemplary disciple. Converted from its natural ferocity, it henceforth only ate bread and vegetables. It even received an obedience in the task of leading the monastery donkeys to the banks of the river to graze. One day a donkey, having escaped the surveillance of the lion, wandered away and was caught by camel herders who used to come from Arabia. The lion returned to the monastery in great sadness, head hanging low. St. Gerasimos, thinking that he had eaten the donkey, severely reprimanded it in order to henceforth to carry out the beast of burden's work of bringing water from the river to the monastery. After some time, the camel herder who had stolen the donkey passed by in one of his journeys, and by chance found himself face to face with the lion. The lion, recognizing the donkey, immediately threw himself upon the beast, taking it by the bridle, along with 3 camels in tow, joyfully led it back to the monastery of Abba Gerasimos, wagging its tail in happiness. Its innocence having been thus recognized, the lion, who had received the name of the Jordan, remained permanently in the Lavra and was inseparable from the saint and friend of all the monks. At the end of 5 years, when St. Gerasimos fell asleep in the Lord, Jordan was absent from the monastery. When on its return the monks told the lion of its elder's death, it refused to eat and wandered aimlessly to and fro, let out great roars of despair. The monks could not succeed in consoling it. One of them invited the lion to follow him to see the place where they buried the saint. Approaching the grave, the lion immediately prostrated itself with the monks and violently beating its head against the ground, died, and then, giving a last great roar. John Moschus, who had given us an account of the episode, concludes by saying, all this happened not so that we should attribute a reasonable soul to a lion, but because God wanted to glorify those who glorify him, not only during their life, but also after their death, and to show that wild beasts were subject to Adam before he transgressed his commandments and was thrown out of paradise of delights. The Lavra of St. Gerasimos remained one of the high places of Palestinian monasticism for a long time, until its destruction in the 13th century. The monks, taking with them the relics of the saint, then settled in the Lavra of Kalamon, which took the name of St. Gerasimos. By the prayers of the Saint Gerasimos of the Jordan, may the Lord God have mercy on us and save us. God bless you. We're here for you. We love you dearly. Don't hesitate to reach out, call us, email us, leave us a message on social media. Leave us a note in the comment section. If you'd like to support this ministry, remember to follow us on social media and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, God bless you and have a beautiful rest of your day.